Hello everyone! Oh, dannphan found another celebrity comic to review. Now I guess just as a little disclaimer at the beginning of this video, I am actually a fan of Starset. I do jam to their music quite a bit. For those of you who have never listened to Starset before, they are basically space emo music. So you can imagine my intrigue when I found out that Dustin Bates, the lead singer and writer of Starset, teamed up with Marvel Comics to transform a novel he had written into a comic. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prox Transmissions. Based on the novel by Dustin Bates, adapted by Peter David, edited by Catherine Brown and Darren Sanchez, with special thanks to Devin Dever, please tell me that's how you pronounce his name, with a multitude of different artists, some better than others. Now, knowing that Starset is known for space emo music and seeing this cover, you can basically be assured that this is a story that takes place and or is about space or space travel, but you would be completely wrong. Yes, that's right. Starset, the space emo music band, has a comic that doesn't even take place in space. This cover is a lie. That's not even the main character. I don't know who this is. Nothing in this cover is happening in this comic. If you picked it up because you thought the cover was cool, you have been lied to and deceived. I cannot express my disappointment enough that the space emo music band did not get a comic about space. And it's obvious that they knew that fans of Starset would want a comic about space, because otherwise, why this cover? Anyway, I guess I should get to the actual plot of the comic that doesn't take place in space! So the comic itself doesn't have a very bad start. It basically follows this main character who wakes up in a bathroom stall with no memory. He found out that he sold his home and left himself a note that says to shave his head. When he shaves his head, it reveals that he has numbers tattooed onto him that are revealing coordinates. So, interesting start to an adventure, right? And, I got through pretty far into this comic where he's trying to figure out where he's going exactly, makes some friends along the way, I guess, and eventually unravels the secret of what exactly he's searching for here. But I do gotta say, it takes kinda way too long to get to this point, and the characters are pretty much watered down to have little to no personalities. It also doesn't help that this particular artist at the beginning of this comic is not very good at drawing emotions on characters. Like, in this scene, he's supposed to be panicked, screaming no. Does he look panicked to you? What emotion do you think she's feeling? Do you believe that she's supposed to be, like, angry and freaked out in this panel? You don't see it? These are supposed to be leaves on the windshield. Anyway, so basically, there's some kind of alien technology. It's the everything machine where whatever you want, you can create it, and you don't have to give up anything in order to create it. So the idea is that these big billionaire type companies want this everything machine so that they can make product with it, essentially make any product with it and become a monopoly without having to spend any money on having the products made by a manufacturer. Now obviously this would kind of not work very well in an economy, but I guess it's an interesting interpretation of what if there was a machine that could create anything without costing anything. This is as close to space as we get, but the machine's on Earth, so. Apparently there's supposed to be a romance between him and one of the girls who joins him on the adventure. I didn't see the romance anywhere. I must have missed it, but at some point they just kiss. And I guess it's implied that they were flirting before that somewhere. Somewhere in this dialogue where they're just explaining stuff, there was flirting implied. And at some point his now girlfriend gets captured. And before the main character is captured too, he gets saved. Blah blah blah, cop dies and nobody cares. But anyway, he gets taken by the people who have the everything machine. Finds out that his girlfriend is being held captive by those same people. They explain how monopolies work. work. Yeah, I needed that. Thank you. And then at some point he actually finds out that they have his sort of girlfriend. Maybe they're just hanging out, really. Now this is the only portion of the comic where I was actually somewhat invested in what was happening in the story. Because now we get more of a bigger motivation for the main character to actually act. And you know, you get to see him rescuing his sort of girlfriend from the facility. Unfortunately, this is all pointless because she betrays him immediately afterward. Oh yeah, that's a good face. Put that in the comic. Anyway, so main character guy dies. And then the billionaire guy has the machine, but then this black-haired guy changed the password on him so the presentation don't work. I don't know who this guy is. I think I'm supposed to know who he is. I don't know. I can't be fucked to go back and try to figure it out. Then he hits him with a chair. So stupid looking. Then we have the fight with blonde-haired billionaire guy, and he uses the everything machine to make oil and drown him in oil, I guess. And then this guy once again gets taken by this beard person, and then they talk about going to space. They want to use the everything machine to make copies of people to go to space, and the girl's growing her hair back, but she doesn't recognize them because she had their memory wiped. Sheesh, there's a lot of pointless stuff that happens in this comic. Anyway, it's skipping to the end. Now this guy, he thought he was gonna go to space, but no, they wipe his memory. Then he has a house in the middle of nowhere, a nice place to build a house, I guess. And at the very end of the comic, he gets a transmission asking for help. And that's it. That's where it ends. So the biggest problem about the comic is that it's really boring. Like, maybe it's not as bad in its novel form, because you're not expecting, you know, there to be visually pleasing pages in a novel, because it's all gonna be text. But in a comic, there is not a lot of action going on here. Most of it is characters explaining things to each other. And because it's only characters explaining things to each other, there's not a lot of room for you to actually get to know what the characters' personalities are, because they're always just explaining information. And after all of this, you know, I can't get over the fact that there is no space. And you know, after all of this rigmarole that the plot does with you, you don't even really get an ending. You don't really get everything wrapped up in the end. And considering that the first half or so, 60% of the comic focuses on a character who dies anyway, it almost seems like maybe those parts should have been shortened. Maybe we should have focused on this other guy, since he's the one who's still alive. This comic is an absolute train wreck to read. I mean, like I said, it starts off with like a bit of promise, but the more you get into it, the more overly convoluted it becomes. I'm not even that interested in the concept of an everything machine, but if you're going to introduce an everything machine, could you at least add some nuance to it? Does it have to then turn into an explanation about what monopolies are? I'm sure that based on my brief recap of the comic, you, yourself, have a boatload of questions, but since this comic is so complicated, I can't answer any of your questions. I myself have many questions about this comic that I cannot find the answers to. And like I said, maybe actually reading the novel, it's a little bit better. Maybe it's longer and actually has time to give you the explanations that you require. Maybe it's not as boring since you have to look at art of people standing around for most of the comic. But as far as stories to adapt into comic form, this should not have been one of them. And this is coming from someone who is a Starset fan. So, bias all included, I still could not enjoy this comic. It's not as bad as Mother of Madness, don't get me wrong. It's a million times better than whatever the heck Emilia Clarke came up with. And I'm sure that it could, you know, lead to some thought-provoking things. You could pull some intrigue from the concepts. But it's not something that I would sit down and read to enjoy. And they didn't even go to space. Anyway, do you have any thoughts or opinions on the Starset comic Prox transmissions? Let me know what you think down below in the comments section. If you enjoyed my little review, leave a like, subscribe, let me know what other comics I should read and torture myself with. I actually did go into this comic thinking that I would enjoy it. Anyway, guys, I'll see you next time. Till then, bye!
Program restart. Shutting down all